Good afternoon, colleagues. I think we have the quorum, so we better start. Let's first start this afternoon session with some excellent news. I'm delighted to inform you that we have received an official invitation from Mauritius to host the 13th session of the Intergovernmental Committee in Port Louis. We will further discuss this matter tomorrow under item 19. In the meantime, Mauritius, on behalf of the committee, I sincerely thank you for this invitation. Now, let us go back to the adoption of draft decision 12-11 on the report of the evaluation body on its work in 2017. We had to end our morning session in the middle of examining paragraph 8, so we will continue from there. Can we see paragraph 8 on the screen? Yes. So I think before the lunch, we were about to reach a consensus. Algeria made an amendment to paragraph 8, and instead of the convention, Algeria proposed inscriptions on the lists, and we were thinking that with this amendment we could have the consensus on this paragraph. I'm seeing Algeria. You have the floor.
Je vous remercie, Madame la Présidente, et nous remercions tous ceux qui se sont joints à nous avec cet amendement. Nous souhaiterions juste que, pour être complet, que le mot la convention soit biffé pour que tout le monde ait une lecture claire, voilà, une lecture claire de l'amendement tel qu'il était présenté. Donc, les inscriptions sur la liste ne cherchent pas à établir un système de propriété, etc., jusqu'à la fin. Et à ce sujet aussi, nous souhaiterions entendre, si cela est possible, le Legal Advisor, et qu'elle nous donne sa lecture de cet amendement en premier, et ensuite qu'elle nous rappelle quels sont les mandats des uns et des autres, et qui peut et qui ne peut pas interpréter la Convention. Je vous remercie, Madame la Présidente.
Thank you, Algeria. So I give the floor to legal advisor.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. To reply to the question asked by the distinguished delegate of Algeria, first of all, I wish to confirm that it is the interpretation of the convention belongs to the states parties of the convention because they are the ones who actually drafted the rule and adopted the rule, meaning the convention. But certainly the committee can recommend to the states parties how they wish to interpret the convention. That's for one point. However, now with regard to the specific paragraph that has been, with the new amendments that have been proposed by the distinguished delegate of Algeria, the changes do not seem actually to address the concerns that have been raised by the distinguished of Algeria. Thank you.
Thank you. I understand the explanation by the legal advisor was satisfactory for Algeria. So if there is no other objection, maybe we can move to adopt the para as amended by Algeria. Any objection to that? I see no objection. Para 8 is adopted. Oh, Palestine.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It's after the adoption, my intervention. So it is adopted? Yeah. Actually, I sent a small amendment Remember, I told you that I have a new paragraph 8, but after examining 8 and 9 and 10 and so on, its place finally it is a new, let's say it is 5 bis. With your indulgence, can we go back to this new paragraph 5 bis that is on the screen?
Okay, so we have the proposal by Palestine, Cyprus, Algeria, Armenia, Afghanistan, Cote d'Ivoire as a 5 bis. Is there any reaction from the committee members to this new amendment? I see Philippines. You have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. We thank the committee members who submitted this amendment, and we can add our name as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Philippines. We're adding your name. Any other reaction? Armenia, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chairperson. We have discussed this earlier with the list of few co-sponsors of this paragraph. I would like to suggest adding the word all before the norms and principles are not in line with the objectives of the Convention and all norms and principles of the international law.
Thank you, Armenia.
Thank
Secretary
you.
will reflect your amendment. I've seen Senegal asking for the floor. No? Okay. Okay, you co-sponsor the amendment. Okay, let's add Senegal to 5 bis as co-sponsor. Any reaction with regard to the amendment? Mongolia, you would like to take the floor or co-sponsor?
Co-sponsor.
Okay, co-sponsor. Congo, would you also like to co-sponsor 5 bis? Okay. I see Hungary. Would you like to make a comment with regard to the proposal by Armenia? Okay. Please, go ahead, proceed.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would like to ask the sponsor of the amendment to speak about the rationale behind the proposal, as it is standard procedure with new amendments, especially the ones brought forth during the examination of the decision. Could we have, I understand it's Palestine who proposed this paragraph, could we have the rationale and the explanation behind the proposed text, in particular the part which is in the end, that are not in line with, etc. If we can have an explanation of the rationale behind the amendment. Thank you.
So you want Palestine to explain the rationale behind the amendment. So can I give the floor to Palestine?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Actually, I thought that it was clear, the amendment. The purpose of this amendment, and it has been already raised several times in the committee works, it is just to say that whenever it comes to a nomination file, we encourage submissionary state parties to avoid any, how do you say, controversial titles or appellations or expressions, and to abide by the international law in order just to say that here we are not dealing with politics, we are dealing with the protection of the intangible cultural heritage. And that's why we are encouraging state parties to avoid any expression or any vocabulary that may create confusions. This is the first thing. Second thing, everybody agrees that the expressions and the wording should be in line with the objectives of the convention. I don't think that our colleague from Hungary will oppose this. And finally, respecting the norms and principles of the international law, this is binding to all UN agencies and all the intergovernmental committees. So this is the rationale behind it. I hope that this answers the concern of our colleague from Hungary. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much for the explanation. I think our secretary would like to take the floor for a brief explanation. Mr. Curtis.
it's not an explanation, it's a question. Is it the objectives of the convention or the spirit of the convention?
Palestine, please.
Oh, well, it is a little bit more appropriate to say spirit of the convention. Yes, yes, I agree. Thank you.
Thank you. So we're changing into spirit. And I see Algeria asking for the floor. Algeria, you have the floor.
Merci, Madame la Présidente. Non, c'est juste d'aller dans le sens de l'explication qui vient d'être donnée et de donner peut-être un exemple pratique de l'application de ce paragraphe. Il y a quelques années, nous avions présenté un dossier à inscrire sur la liste représentative. Et effectivement, ce dossier a été inscrit par la suite. Toutefois, le titre comportait une notion, un mot qui pouvait être mal interprété. Et nous avions discuté avec quelques États membres, dont un État membre qui avait exprimé des concerns, des réserves sur ce mot-là. Et de manière amicale et bilatérale et dans l'esprit de la Convention, nous avons entrepris des démarches pour changer le titre de notre présentation, de notre dossier, qui était plus un problème de traduction qu'autre chose. Donc nous avons déjà à l'esprit un aspect, une application pratique pour ce paragraphe que nous avons présenté. Je vous remercie, Madame la Présidente.
Thank you very much, Algeria. I think we all understand the importance of this paragraph, and there's no objection from the floor, as far as I can see, for the adoption. With a minor amendment coming from Armenia, can we adopt it as a whole, the paragraph? Do we have any objection? I see Hungary. You have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I don't want to object. I understand that the original language was the French, I mean, for this amendment. The English towards the end, the norms and principles of the international law, I don't think we need the article there. I am not clear about the Armenian proposal now, which is before the norms. What is the status of that? There is a typing error up in titles of nomination, but that will be cleared later. Well, we are hesitating a little bit. We understand now better the rationale behind it, although we don't know the exact case that was referred to by Algeria. I'm also a bit dubitative about changing from objectives of the convention, which is clear, it's Article 2 of the convention, to spirit of the convention, which is less tangible, so to say. So while I understand the rationale now, and I agree with the purpose of the paragraph, I am a bit hesitating about the actual wording of it. In particular, changing from objectives to spirit. Is that something that has been used several times and is appropriate to be used in such a context? Maybe the legal advisor could advise us on that, as well as the last part of the paragraph referring to the norms and principles of international law, which of course we are always expected to abide by. So my reservations are not about substance and content, it's about the wording. But I hope this can be cleared quickly and we can go along with the consensus. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Hungary. I see Armenia, you have the floor.
Thank you. If I may suggest another change, not to complicate things, because we changed the objectives to spirit, which I am totally supportive of, but we could use the idiomatic phrase in line with the letter and spirit of the convention, which would mean also the objectives and also the spirit of the convention in general. I would also like to explain why I have suggested all, because the norms and principles indicates to kind of specific norms, whereas all means every norm and principle of international law is more all-inclusive. Thank you.
Can we reflect the Armenian proposal, yes, on the screen? And in the meantime, can we have an explanation to the question raised by Hungary from the legal advisor, please? Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. So, to reply to the question raised by the distinguished delegate of Hungary, so first of all, the distinction between spirit and objectives of the Convention is more a question of scope. Referring to the spirit of the Convention, it's a broader scope with regard to what the Convention is and stands for, so it not only includes objectives, but also all the context, whereas the word objectives is more a specific context, and as it sets forth specifically in the text of the Convention, therefore it's to you, the sovereign body, to decide whether you wish to use the more broad term in this regard or the more specific term of the objectives of the Convention. I think there was another question as well with regard to the last sentence. Yes. With regard to referring to the norms and principles of international law, this is also, of course, the decision of the committee, if you wish to refer to this. With regard to the expression all, in my view, it could be difficult to define what is all with regards to the norms and principles of international law. So generally, in practice, we simply refer to the expression in accordance with the principles of international law, which would actually include as well the norms and etc. And it could be it can be interpreted as containing all the principles of international law and norms. I hope this clarifies things. Thank you.
Hungary, is it satisfactory for you?
I thank very much the legal advisor, Madam Chair, through you, for this clear explanation. For what she said last, I think the principles of international law would suffice, and then we could avoid further debate about what kind of norms. Principles, on the basis of what she said, principles includes the norms as well, so, and the principles of international law. As for the other question about objectives or spirit or letter and spirit, maybe we could say the provisions of the Convention. The provisions of the Convention are not in line with the provisions of the Convention. And that actually implies all the clauses, all the provisions of the Convention, its objectives, and everything which is in there. If we go into spirit, there can be questions of interpretation. Thank you very much, Madam Chair.
Palestine, I see Palestine. You have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I don't have the intention to delay the debate on this paragraph. Actually, as it has been mentioned by the legal advisor, spirit is much more broader than the provisions or the objectives. It is a little bit more limited. Meanwhile, if this may address the concern of our colleague from Hungary, we can go along, but really we prefer to keep at least the spirit, if not the letter and spirit. Letter and spirit is much more broader, and it covers also the provisions in that case, while the provisions do not really. The spirit is something, as he mentioned correctly, it is intangible, and it is all the context around the convention itself. So if there is flexibility to keep it, we will go along. If not, in that case, we will agree on his amendment in order to adopt the paragraph as it stands. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Palestine. I see Armenia. You have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chairperson. I have another question for the legal advisor. Can we use the term from the Charter instead of the norms and principles? Much better to say purposes and principles, as it is in the UN Charter. It will be probably acceptable to everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Armenia. Legal advisor, can you please respond?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chairperson. Well, first, I wanted just to make a note as well with regard to the mentioning of the provisions, spirit, letter, and spirit. Probably another solution could be just simply to refer to the convention, in line with the convention. That would include everything. First, now to reply to the question raised by the distinguished delegate of Armenia, it is also a decision that can be taken by the committee if you wish to refer to the wording in the UN Charter, but this is your decision. Thank you very much.
Armenia is asking the floor. Yes, you have.
Yeah, I would like then just to make a formal motion to replace the norms with purposes and principles. Thank you.
Thank you. Can we please reflect it on the screen? It will take just one moment. The Secretary is working to reflect the amendments. I will give the floor to Philippines, but just to clear with Armenia that it was the purposes and principles of the United Nations, right? This was your proposal.
Of the UN Charter.
Of the UN Charter. Of the UN Charter, please. Of the UN Charter. Okay. Now I give the floor to Philippines.
Thank you, Chair. Also, just to aid in moving forward, after hearing from the legal advisor, we would prefer then just convention first on that first part, and with regard to the end, I think also to have a general formulation here and say just principles of international would be fine for us to keep it simple, so that are not in line with the convention and principles of international law would be a very simple formulation. However, again, if we do choose to cite the UN Charter, of course, we have no problem being a member of the UN. But I think maybe a simple formulation of just principles of international law on the understanding that it does also include norms and other customary practices and customary international law within that, the principles. Thank you.
Thank you, Philippines. Are there any committee members wishing to react to the proposals? Palestine.
Could the Secretariat please reflect the proposal of our colleague from Philippines and clean the other things in order to read it clearly, because now it is a little bit difficult to follow. Thank you.
Okay, so you want us to delete the Armenian proposal on letter and the Hungarian proposal with regard to provision, and just insert convention in line with the convention. Okay. I see Cyprus, you have the floor.
Merci Madame la Présidente. C'était aussi pour appuyer ce que proposent les Philippines, qu'on nettoie le texte, qui reste vraiment comme il l'a proposé, comme ça il sera plus clair et plus précis. Merci.
Okay, so I understand that after hearing the legal advisor, Armenia is requesting the floor. You have the floor, sir.
Thank you. I can go with the Philippines' proposal of leaving the text as it is, but in that case, I will still insist on adding the word all, which will show the all-inclusivity, all norms and principles of international law. Thank you.
Thank you, Armenia. So I think for the first proposal, everyone is in agreement that we should keep in line with the convention. So there is a deal on that. With regard to the second one, we can agree if Armenian proposal to insert all is adopted by consensus by the committee members. Is there any objection to that? No objection? Okay, I don't see any objection. So can we consider then, with the as amended by Armenia, all norms and principles of international law? Philippines is asking the floor? No? No, okay. Okay, so the Secretariat will amend the text as in line with the convention and all norms and principles of international law. So we're going to adapt the paragraph as amended by Armenia. Any objection to that? I see no objection. Can Secretariat please amend the paragraph? Yes. Okay, so no objection. We're adapting para 5 bis as amended by Armenia. Okay, can we scroll down, please? Okay, now we're going to consider paragraph 11. I think we have some new co-sponsors.
No, we have a new wording.
Oh, sorry, we have a new wording. Okay, can you then reflect it on the floor? Okay, I think we have the amended version of the paragraph on the screen. If you can have a look. Are there any reaction to this new paragraph 11? Senegal, I see Senegal asking for the floor. You have the floor, sir.
Merci, Madame la Présidente. C'est juste demander à ceux qui ont proposé le paragraphe de nous expliquer un peu, de manière un peu plus précise, qu'est-ce qu'ils ont derrière un peu ce paragraphe, qu'est-ce qui le motive. Merci.
Thank you, Senegal. Can I ask one of the co-sponsors, Hungary, Turkey, Bulgaria, or Palestine, to take the floor to explain? I see Hungary.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for giving us the opportunity to speak again to our own amendment, which we already did at the beginning of this sequence of paragraphs that started with 9. If I might recall, the objective of these paragraphs is to further facilitate cooperation in the preparation of nomination files in order to enhance multinational nominations. And in particular, the paragraph 10 and 11 would help to avoid potential misunderstandings among communities concerning the ownership of ICH. This would help the work of the committee, we understand, if in paragraph 1 the shared nature of the element is clearly spelled out on the basis of information provided in the nomination file. And in fact, our amendment as of this afternoon, which came as an amendment to the amendment, the part based on information provided in the nomination file, this was our original intention, but after consultations with the several delegations, we agreed that this is better if it's spelled out in the text itself. Thank you very much, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much for the explanation. I see Ethiopia. You have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wish to co-sponsor this paragraph. Thank you.
Thank you. We are adding your name to the list of co-sponsors. Afghanistan, co-sponsor. Okay. Armenia, co-sponsor. Cyprus, co-sponsor. And St. Lucia, co-sponsor. Okay. If you can add the names. Zambia as well. Oh, you're asking for the floor? Okay. Zambia, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I don't know what will be the difference, or what difference will it make if we assume this is taken care of by Para 8, unless the Para 8 has changed significantly. But the way it was presented, I think it covers this, unless we just want to have a lot of words which are not necessary, really. Because what this one contains is contained in Para 8. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, maybe we can have a look at Para 8. Can we see Para 8? Any reaction to the proposal of Zambia from the co-sponsors? As far as I understood, Zambia has proposed to delete Para 11, the new proposal, because they believe that it has been already reflected in Para 8. Any reaction to that? Do I see Hungary? You have the floor.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, for the kind invitation indeed. And thank you for giving me the floor again. Our understanding is, and the rationale behind this paragraph, is that what is currently paragraph 8, I think, gives the paragraph 8, 9, and 10, 8 and 9, gives kind of the principles which then put into operative paragraphs in 10 and 11. If I can have that on the screen. So, yes. So basically, if we want our principles to be followed up that are proposed in 8 and 9, then our understanding is that 10 and 11 helps to put them into practice. This is why this comes all together. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much, Hungary. I think our secretary would like to explain the rationale, and I'll give the floor to him, Mr. Curtis.
Thank you. If we can go back to paragraph 8 very quickly, we will see that paragraph 8 reminds state parties, whereas paragraph 11, if we can go down, is addressed to the evaluation body. The two paragraphs are addressed to different entities. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think Zambia is satisfied with the explanations. So if there's no objection, can we proceed and adopt paragraph 11? I think I see no objection. Then para 11 is adopted. Para 12. No objection. If there's no objection, para 12 is adopted. Para 13. We have minor amendments from Zambia. Maybe they would like to introduce. Zambia, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I can't even remember what the sentences was before I changed, but we wanted it to read smartly. That's why we added that. I don't know if anyone has a problem with that. So that it flows. Thank you.
Thank you. Our secretary would like to explain. Mr. Curtis?
No, I would just like to thank Zambia for improving our English language in their proposal. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Zambia. Thank you very much, Mr. Curtis. So if there's no objection, can we adopt para 13? I see no objection. Para 13 is adopted. Para 14. If there's no objection, can we adopt para 14? I see no objection. Para 14 is adopted. Para 15. Is there any objection to para 15? None. Para 15 is adopted. So we have a new paragraph proposed by Philippines, Palestine, and Mongolia in para 16. Can one of the co-sponsors please kindly introduce Philippines? I see Philippines. You have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. If you recall, earlier in this item, we talked about one file, and then there was a reference to the inscription of an associated site on their tentative list under the World Heritage Convention, and it was agreed that we would move such reference of synergies between cultural conventions, in particular the 1972 convention, to this general resolution. So in consultation with some committee members, we've proposed this language, and I just, maybe just for a little bit more explanation, for instance, here in Jeju, there's a World Heritage Site, but there's also inscribed elements on the ICH's representative list here. So this is the kind of, perhaps, you know, synergies or exploring how these connections can be further, you know, be beneficial for states, parties, and communities. This is the kind of approach that we're asking for. Thank you.
Thank you, Philippines. I see Algeria asking for the floor. You have the floor.
Je vous remercie, Madame la Présidente. Nous souhaiterions nous joindre à ce paragraphe, mais nous avions un amendement mineur à rajouter au texte avec la permission des co-sponsors. Effectivement, c'est extrêmement très important de parler de synergie, mais il ne faut pas exclure aussi les programmes. Donc je pense nommément au programme MAB qui aussi peut avoir de la synergie avec la Convention de 2003 et tel que le texte est libellé, cela exclut le programme MAB. C'est pour ça que nous souhaiterions vers la fin rajouter ainsi que les autres conventions et programmes. Parce que le MAB étant un programme et non une convention. Donc, convention et programme. Et biffé culturel. Comme ça, on est couvert. Toute convention ou programme de l'UNESCO. Voilà. Biffé culturel. Non, biffé, le mot culturel. Voilà. Programme de l'UNESCO. Je vous remercie, Madame la Présidente.
Thank you, Algeria. I see Hungary asking for the floor. You have the floor.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, for giving me the floor. We would like to strongly support this amendment brought forward by the Philippines, and actually the example cited by the Philippines very much supports also the amendment brought forward by Algeria. Jeju Island is also a biosphere reserve, and that is a UNESCO program. So our understanding is that indeed the synergies should be extended to to UNESCO conventions and programs. We understand that the World Heritage Convention comes first. This is always the first association that people bring when they talk about this convention. We can live with that it stays like that, but we would like to remind that the World Heritage Convention is not the only one that is relevant. But maybe this is a question to the Secretariat, whether the formulation as well as other UNESCO conventions, and we also agree with deleting the word cultural, but whether using conventions, all the conventions, is something feasible to do. So maybe the word relevant conventions and programs, relevant could be inserted, but I would like to listen to Mr. Secretary on this point first before making up our minds. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Madam Chair.
Thank you, Hungary. Let's hear the Secretariat on this question. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, I think this paragraph comes in within other broader discussions that are happening within UNESCO. On a very specific thing, I'm pleased to inform you concerning 1972 and 2003, we've already set up cross-referencing on our website so that any site in the 72 convention that is linked with an element in the 2003, they click up. That's just a little technical thing. But I think you will know, those of you in the room who are involved in the discussions on programming and the C5, that the culture sector has two cross-cutting main lines of actions which are precisely intended to cover the synergies and collaboration across all the culture conventions, at least. I'll give the floor to the director of our division to speak. Before, I'll just say concerning other sectors, we don't mind, in the sense, the spirit of that, as long as you understand the practical implications of how long these things are. But I don't think the language here is that, you know, request that we do this by then. This is just encouraging that direction, so it's okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I wanted to just clarify perhaps that at the level of the culture sector, what we are doing is, if you look at the 39C5, the plan for the next biennium, we have two cross-cutting expected results that are cross-cutting across all the 6 culture conventions. One is on conflict and emergencies, and the other is on the SDGs, and these and the 2030 agenda. Now, these cross-cutting results are expected results are doing precisely what is suggested here, which is looking at the synergies, because they're going across all the conventions and seeing where these conventions are where the implementation of these activities connect with the conventions. Now, this is, if you look at the 1972 convention, they are already, the natural heritage is already in synergy with the MAB convention or the MAB program. So all of these are linked through the ones that are operating together, because there's the biodiversity conventions that are already working together. So even at the level of beyond UNESCO, there are the biodiversity conventions, and the 1972 convention where natural heritage is concerned are working with the biodiversity convention. So there are linkages at different levels. And we are looking at these linkages and these synergies in these specific cross-cutting areas. So I just wanted to clarify that. So whether we need to do that within the scope of the work of this convention is what you have to decide.
Thank you very much. I have a list of speakers: Ethiopia, Korea, Palestine, Turkey, Afghanistan, Cyprus, Senegal, Côte d'Ivoire. Let's proceed. Ethiopia first. You have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair, for giving me the floor. I just want to reflect very brief. The other day, I had concerns when we were implying, with some implying paragraph, and I'm very thankful and happy for those countries who have drafted this paragraph. I'm very comfortable with the spirit of this paragraph, but one minor question I have, because the paragraph winds on all UNESCO conventions and programs, why do we have to cap the 1972 convention? I'm thinking that it's a subset of the UNESCO conventions. So if we say UNESCO conventions later on, if we have specific reasoning to put the 1972 convention bold, I can live with that. But can't we assume it's a subset of the UNESCO conventions? If that is so, we can a little bit qualify this paragraph. Otherwise, I am in agreement of this paragraph as amended by Algeria, specifically because it helps us understand and frame all programs which potentially can help to our cause. So with this, I would like to be a co-sponsor to this paragraph. Thank you.
Thank you very much. You want a co-sponsor as it is or as amended?
As amended, thank you, by Algeria.
Okay, thank you. I give the floor to Republic of Korea.
감사합니다, 의장님. 무형문화유산의 보유자분들이 가지고 있는 진정성과 기술이 세계유산의 보존에 상당히 진정성 있게 소용된 경우가 많습니다. 해서 이 패라를 저도 동의를 합니다. 이상입니다.
Thank you, Korea. I give the floor to Palestine now.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I will try to be very brief, and thank you for giving me the floor again. Actually, I would like to start by thanking our colleague from Algeria. It is absolutely a relevant amendment that, of course, we support. And there is another amendment that has been mentioned by Hungary, but it is not reflected on the screen, as well as other relevant UNESCO conventions and programs. Relevant, I think, is absolutely acceptable, and it make it more clear. Now, as for the question of our colleague from Ethiopia, I'll leave the answer to our colleague from Philippines because we discussed this ahead when we were drafting the question. And final amendment, having listened to Madam Director, I think it's better for us to say, let me see, now I can't read anymore. Instead of saying encourages efforts, we should insert the word further. Encourages further efforts, because already the efforts are there. It has been done. So just if we can put this. Okay, thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Palestine. I give the floor to Turkey, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As Secretariat has already explained, the synergies process have already established in the Secretariat, and they have been working on that. And apart from that, this issue have been discussed within the context of ad hoc working group on governance, which called for further synergies as well. So that is very much in line with the work of the ad hoc working group, and we will go into details of this issue in agenda item later in one of the agenda items. I forgot, it was 18, I don't remember right now. So this is highly relevant, but we will prefer to go along with the Hungarian suggestion with the fact that we can't recall all programs, because I think the emphasis in here goes for the geoparks and MOP, because there is the MOST program, there is the IHP program. For sure, coherence within all UNESCO is needed. But I think what we are trying to do is something different. So it is in terms of the protection sites. So I think we shouldn't really cover all programs of UNESCO. So along with these lines, we will be supportive of this paragraph in line with the amendment proposals of Hungary. Thank you.
Thank you. Afghanistan, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Actually, I wanted to support this amendment and also remind the word relevant, which is now here. Thank you.
Thank you. Cyprus, please.
Merci, Madame la Présidente. Moi aussi, maintenant, je suis d'accord avec les amendements qui ont eu lieu. Si vous rajoutez les relevantes aussi dans le texte français. Merci.
Thank you. Now, Senegal, please.
Je me joins à cela, mais il faut comprendre que la Convention 72, pas qu'elle est plus renommée, pas qu'elle est plus prestigieuse, mais c'est dans la mise en œuvre de cette convention qu'on s'est rendu compte qu'il y a beaucoup de choses qui ne relèvent pas de cette convention. Je ne dis pas que elle a la paternité sur les autres, mais avec la 2003, on s'est rendu compte que le lien entre l'immatériel et le matériel sont tellement forts sur certains sites classés que quelquefois, les synergies sont plus... Pas que les synergies sont plus faciles avec la 72, parce que la 2005 est là, mais quand même, il y a des réalités. Mais je suis tout à fait d'accord avec la Belgique, avec la Hongrie, de dire relevant. Mais relevant par rapport à quoi? Relevant par rapport à la mise en œuvre de notre convention. Je pense que si on peut ajouter une petite phrase comme ça, pertinent par rapport à, bien sûr, l'atteinte des objectifs, ou bien, je ne sais pas, parce que la pertinence, c'est par rapport à la mise en œuvre de notre convention. Juste une petite phrase, peut-être en ajoutant cela. Merci.
Thank you. Now, Côte d'Ivoire, you have the floor.
Merci, Madame la Présidente. Je suis un peu perdue avec tous ces... C'était juste pour dire que je soutenais toutes les propositions, les amendements faits. Et j'avais un peu la même préoccupation que l'Éthiopie. Pourquoi citer spécifiquement la 72 et ne pas dire la synergie entre la Convention de 2003 et les autres conventions et programmes de l'UNESCO? Merci.
Thank you, Côte d'Ivoire. I see Zambia now. You have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chairman, Chairperson rather. I would want to support that, and we have no problem with the 1972 Convention, except, would say, as well as other relevant international conventions, because at one stage we spoke about international laws, respect for international laws. So are we going to say we are going to restrict ourselves only to UNESCO conventions? What about other relevant UN conventions? If they, in one way or another, affect our work, won't we try to put our activities in sync with those? Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Chair.
Thank you. I see Philippines and Cuba. Philippines, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. Just to thank all committee members for the interest that this has generated, and we welcome relevant And just to answer to some questions of the distinguished delegates from Ethiopia and Cote d'Ivoire, the reason why 1972 is mentioned there explicitly is because that was how it was raised in the context of our discussions here in this session. It was under a specific file, and in that file, it was noted that an associated site was inscribed on the state's party's tentative list. That's what I think Zambia noted that there's much, or Senegal noted that the links between 2003 and 1972 are quite more tangible then, and that's why it's mentioned there, and we would prefer that it be mentioned explicitly, I think. And maybe with regard to the last suggestion from Zambia, just again to move forward, I'm not sure if it might be too broad then, because we're broadening the scope so much. We're flexible though, but maybe we would prefer to just keep it UNESCO conventions and programs for the time being, relevant UNESCO conventions and programs for the time being. Thank you.
I see Palestine also agreeing to that. Cuba, please, you have the floor.
Merci Madame la Présidente. Je pense que ce n'est pas notre mandat ouvert ces paragraphes concernant le reste des conventions, que peut-être il y a des États membres qui sont partis de ces conventions, que nous le sont des autres instruments internationaux. Je pense que nous sommes prêts pour adopter sa proposition. On regarde que la liaison entre ces deux conventions, peut-être c'est la liste. Il n'y a pas d'autre instrument à l'UNESCO qu'il y ait une liste indicative, qu'il y ait une liste représentative comme la Convention de patrimoine mondial et la Convention de patrimoine immatériel, parce que c'est vrai que la diversité culturelle, c'est une convention qu'il y a beaucoup de liaisons avec ces conventions, mais il n'y a pas de liste. Et peut-être il y a quelque chose qui sont très similaires dans ces deux conventions, mais je pense que la proposition de l'intégrer, de faire la référence à le reste des conventions et programmes de l'UNESCO, couvre la préoccupation des autres États membres, mais nous sommes d'accord de mettre des autres conventions internationales et tout comme ça dans ces paragraphes, et pour nous, on peut les adopter comme reste sur l'écran. Merci.
Thank you, Cuba. Any other requests for the floor? Austria, sorry, I couldn't see you. Austria, you have the floor.
No problem, thank you. We would actually support to keep UNESCO conventions and add recommendations as well to like conventions, recommendations, and programs.
I see Hungary.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Although our neighbor is very far today from us, she speaks from our mind. Indeed, it was our intention to propose to include recommendations. For example, the General Conference adopted in 2015 the recommendation on the protection and promotion of museums and collections. If I recall well, on 2011 on the historic urban landscapes, specifically mentioning intangible cultural heritage. These are all contexts in which ICH is relevant. Citing UNESCO programs, traditional water management techniques, such as the ones we inscribed today from Peru, may also be relevant in the IHP program. So for us, UNESCO conventions, recommendations, and programs would be a good formulation. Indeed, I flagged the question to include relevant before asking the Secretary to respond. And if there is a consensus in the room about relevant, we are happy to go along. We don't insist on that point. But UNESCO conventions, recommendations, and programs would certainly cover the spectrum that is reasonable to expect. Of course, we would not be against going beyond normative instruments adopted outside the context of UNESCO, but probably that would be something at this stage that would be too much to ask. At this stage, I think we could satisfy if at least with other programs, conventions, and recommendations of UNESCO, there is synergy, and then we can take a step further later on. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. I see Palestine.
Thank you, Madam Chair, but I think we are complicating our business. First of all, I think that we heard some delegations raising concerns about the Zambian amendment. I agree with them that international, maybe the Secretariat or Madam Director can help us. When we say international, we are going too far and it becomes too, I think, so it's better to take it off. Second, relevant, we've been supporting, and it's me who asked to put the Hungarian amendment because it is absolutely appropriate. But now I have some concern about the recommendations. I think if we keep it as well as other relevant UNESCO conventions and programs, it will be clear enough first, and it will be relevant to our purpose. We know that for the conventions and the programs, there are secretariat, there are a structure. Recommendations, there are no secretariat and there are no structure to manage them. So I think it is not at all appropriate to keep the recommendations. Thank you. So I suggest the deletion of recommendations. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. I don't see any other requests. Oh, Turkey, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. In fact, synergies issue is a very sensitive issue. You should have decisions for that. And what kind of synergies we're talking about. And in here, there's a process launched in UNESCO. So I think our starting point is that synergies. And we can't expand the synergies process to all other international conventions and so on. And since we are in the UNESCO house, we have to limit ourselves with the relevant UNESCO conventions in the first place. Secondly, regarding the Austria's recommendations, we have some difficulty in understanding it. What do we mean by that? Because in here, we're talking about the conventions and the programs, which have statutory processes, but recommendations is something different to our understanding. But if legal advisor could give some feedback on that, you know, what will be the implications of putting it there as such? Thank you.
Thank you, Turkey. I see Cyprus asking for the floor.
Merci, Madame la Présidente. C'était pour dire la même chose, qu'il faut effacer recommandations parce qu'on parle des, entre conventions et non pas avec les recommandations, et de rester aussi aux conventions de l'UNESCO et non pas internationales. Merci.
Thank you, Cyprus. Colombia, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We believe this discussion is becoming very complex, and actually the purpose of that is just to remark that we should have some synergies with the 1972 convention and other conventions that could be relevant or connected to our convention. I think it's becoming too complex, and the spirit is so simple that we don't need to go so far for that. Secondly, this is debated not only here, but in other conventions, other areas of UNESCO. So I think we should keep simple and not become if it's relevant or connected or too much or program, or we cannot list everything that UNESCO has here related to culture. Indeed, ICH is always related to everything with culture, education, gender, armed conflicts, and everything in life. So we cannot list it here. We should just keep it synergies with this convention, with UNESCO conventions, and that's all. Then if we find one is relevant at the moment, I'm sure we will have the debate if this one is relevant or not, or connected, or blah, blah, blah. So let's give an opportunity to the future and just keep it simple. We are making it such a big, complex discussion for something so simple. And we all agree in the spirit of this paragraph. Thank you.
Thank you, Colombia. I see St. Lucia.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, I cannot quite see how I can have synergies with a recommendation. I can have synergy with a structured program and a convention, but to have it with a recommendation, it's a little thing. So I vote for the removal of recommendations.
Thank you, St. Lucia. I see Algeria.
Oui, Madame la Présidente, c'est juste pour essayer d'avancer un peu. Effectivement, ça se complique un peu, mais Moi, je trouve que ça a encore du sens et nous devrions rester sur les conventions et programmes pour une simple raison. C'est que les conventions et programmes ont un secrétariat, pas les recommandations. Donc les secrétariats peuvent se parler entre eux et entamer ce qu'on appelle une synergie. Avec les recommandations, c'est un peu plus délicat. Donc c'est pour ça qu'on souhaiterait rester sur recommandations et sur conventions et programmes. Maintenant, pertinentes ou pas pertinentes, il est clair que nous n'allons pas travailler avec une convention ou un programme qui n'est pas pertinent. Je vous remercie, Madame la Présidente.
Thank you. I'll give the floor to Côte d'Ivoire and then maybe we can wrap up this discussion. Côte d'Ivoire, please.
Merci, Madame la Présidente. J'aborde dans le même sens que les autres pays par rapport aux mots recommandations. Nous pensons que la Convention, les programmes n'ont pas la même force juridique que les recommandations. Et il faut vraiment que notre collègue de l'Autriche accepte peut-être de supprimer le mot recommandation. Merci.
Thank you, Côte d'Ivoire. So I think if we can have something along these lines, as well as other relevant UNESCO conventions and programs, we will be agreeing to this paragraph. So in that regard, I appeal to Austria and Hungary to withdraw their amendment proposals.
From our side, we agree to move forward.
Okay, I think we have a consensus now in the room. So if there's no objection, let's proceed to the adoption of this paragraph as amended. No objection, I see none. Adopted. Okay, let's proceed to the paragraph 17. Are there any objections? None. Adopted. 18. Any objection to para 18? I see none. Adopted. So I think we have adopted all the relevant paras. Now we're going to proceed to adopt the draft decision in its entirety. If there is no objection, can we adopt the decision in its entirety as amended? I see no objection. It's adopted. Okay. The chair of the evaluation body wants to take the floor to say a few words before we conclude this agenda item 11. Mr. Skunti, you have the floor.
Merci beaucoup, Madame la Présidente, de me donner la parole, puisque c'est ma dernière année au sein de l'organe d'évaluation. Je voulais adresser quelques remerciements avant de quitter le podium. Je voudrais d'abord remercier les membres du comité qui m'ont élu pour un mandat de 3 ans, de 2015 à 2017. J'espère avoir été à la hauteur de cette confiance. Je voudrais remercier mes collègues de l'organe d'évaluation de m'avoir élu président en 2015 et en 2017. À la tête de cet organe, j'espère également que j'ai été à la hauteur de la confiance qu'ils ont placée en moi. Je voudrais remercier le secrétariat pour leur soutien indéfectible, pour leur professionnalisme. Je pense que nous sommes devenus un peu plus que des collègues maintenant. En tout cas, c'est mon sentiment. Je les remercie toutes et tous. Je remercie les États parties pour leur indulgence lorsque les recommandations que nous avons faites à l'adresse du comité n'ont pas été celles auxquelles ils s'attendaient peut-être. Je remercie toutes les autres parties prenantes, mes collègues, les chercheurs, les membres des ONG. Je suis ravi d'avoir servi la Convention au cours de ces dernières années, notamment au sein de l'organe. Et je voudrais souhaiter plein succès à mes collègues de l'organe, ceux qui y siègent maintenant, ceux qui seront élus.
Et je souhaite plein succès au comité et j'espère que la Convention ira de l'avant pour sauvegarder le patrimoine culturel immatériel qui nous est cher et qui nous réunit toutes et tous ici. Merci beaucoup, Madame la Présidente.
Thank you very much, Mr. Skunti. On behalf of all committee members, we thank you for all your efforts and we wish you all the best and success in your future endeavors. Well, unfortunately, my term has ended with this agenda item. It's been a pleasure working with all of you. Thank you for your cooperation. And I understand the Ambassador Lee has asked the Vice Chair Colombia to assume this duty, so I'm just going to leave our Vice Chair from Colombia.
Good afternoon. Okay, to move on the agenda, the Secretariat has a proposal for us to change the order of the agenda. They propose to first talk about the item 14, about the reflection on the removal of an element from a list to another. Then we will discuss the item 13, about the report of the informal ad hoc working group. And afterwards, we will discuss the item 12, regarding the procedures to facilitate dialogue between evaluation body and submitting states. But before we take the decision, I will give the floor to the Secretariat so they can explain why this change.
Thank you, Madam Chairperson. Dear committee members, the reasoning for the proposed change to invert items 13 on the informal ad hoc working group and item 14 being the reflections on the transfer of an element. Firstly, of course, we've just been discussing this issue of transfer as an element, but more importantly, in terms of time management, we have received a draft amendment on item 13, which would require being adopted only once after item 14 would have been agreed. In order to avoid suspending an item, going back to another item and coming back, we propose to start with item 14 so that when we come to item 13, that amendment can be already examined and save us some time. Thank you.
Do we have any comments or do we all agree to change the order of the agenda? I see none comments.